the main event of this show, we do an updated version of the Dean's report card where Shane Douglas will put on his sort of figurative mortarboard. Yeah, your spectacles, the figurative mortarboard, and you are going to grade some of the modern professional wrestlers on 4 different categories, and then we'll have like a weighted average of all of them and see who comes out on top. So we have look, promo ability, wrestling ability, and it factor / superstar quality. And the first one I thought I'd throw to you is Seth Rollins.
Seth Rollins certainly has the X factor, right? Has the look. $1 million in that respect. Me grading him on like the promo and the wrestling stuff, just a little disclaimer, understanding that industry is very different from the industry that I was in. So I guess in that WWE model, he obviously is giving them something they like, right? So I would say from that point of view, his promos that are canned there, and his wrestling ability, I guess, for an entertainment company. I've seen him work on independent shows in other places and see a different side of him that I don't see when he's performing before them. And I wish he would let more of that out. Again, it's been so long since I've been up there, been around people, talking to people from up there. I don't know how much they micromanage. In my experience, it was quite a bit. And to me, when I say X factor, to me, there's the part of that X factor is charisma and the way you carry yourself and all of that. But also that X factor is what's that extra ingredient that you can throw in that's going to make the fans out there watching go, oh, okay, this is something special here, right? Something different. Sabu's is the explosiveness. Mine would be the promos, right? Terry Funk's is the way he carries himself, that old coot character. But I don't think that I've seen Seth do that while there, and probably not allowed to.
If you were, it might be a bit too difficult because you won't know a lot of these new guys enough to give exact grades for those 4 different categories. But I might just ask for the grades right at the end then. So give us the next one. Chris Jericho in 2022.
Obviously, right? He's got the look at his age. Promo ability, well honed over decades in the business. The wrestling identity, I think, is probably the strongest brand they probably have there right now. And the X factor. Jericho's always had that. When he came to ECW as a young guy, there was that something you could see in him, that X factor. But these guys, the guys that have been to the WWE, like him, Punk and some others, they've been to that big dance, and they know how that big place works, which is why I expect a little bit more out of those guys when stuff like what we had talked about earlier came up. But I've always been a fan of Chris.
Next one, I'm not sure you've seen him, but Bron Breakker, Bronson Rechsteiner.
Yeah, I've only seen one clip of him, and based off the things I've heard, I mean, obviously the look, right, has that. You can see that X factor, although it's a bit nebulous right now. That will hone in time. The wrestling factor, based on the clip I saw him, very much in the vein of like Scotty or Ricky, which makes perfect sense. And I think there's a place for that in the business right now, a big place, right? That we've gotten so much into all this other stuff that there's a niche for somebody to do what Braun does. And hit him all the local promo. I've never seen him do a promo, so I can't say based on it. But based on what I've seen and what I've heard, I like what I've seen so far, and the stuff that I've heard, and I've met him. It seems like a really, really nice young guy, and looks like Scott and Ricky, right? Certainly the bulldog part to play.
Yeah, he does promos like Scott and Rick as well. Jon Moxley.
Okay, Moxley, the same thing. I mean, for me, my take on Jon has been that when they had him in that character in WWE, that obviously was a straitjacket to him, right? Because the stuff I'm watching him do now is compelling. It brings you to the edge of the seat. To me, if you said to me the one person in AEW you want to watch, I would say Moxley, because there's that bit of a not quite sure what he might do next. and that lures me. That's a hook to me when I'm watching him. And just a little side note, as a longtime performer, he looks liberated there. He looks like 1,000 pounds have been taken off his shoulders. So the promo stuff, understand promo stuff to me is a hair different to like somebody else, because there's some that are very good at it, some that are good at it, some that aren't good at it, some that really stink at it. And there's a place for all of those, right? Like, you don't want, if everybody came out and got on the stick and hammered the 10-star promo, there's really nothing special to it. So, but Moxley, I think I see a lot of just the what's the word I'm looking for? The charisma, and he looks like he's been let out of the straitjacket. Like he's finally able to do what he wants to do.
Mm-hmm. Drew McIntyre.
Big guy, has the presence. I think he's outside his element. He looks to be somewhat classically trained, old school trained, but seems to be trying to fit that in, square peg in a round hole.
Nick Aldis.
Love Nick. I think he's exactly what the NWA needs right now in that championship role. Nick's always been a class act, and he's diligent about his industry and his craft.
Britt Baker.
What I'd heard about her really had her built up. I'd only seen, again, full disclosure, one match of her in Pittsburgh, and the fanfare that I'd heard prior was, man, like she's like here somewhere. And I was completely underwhelmed with what I saw in Pittsburgh in the ring. I don't know. I'm sure she's a great person. It's somewhat unfair to throw somebody into a main event spot or these accolades. I think of Eric Watts off the top of my head. This is a very difficult industry to learn, certainly, and even harder to master. And so when you tell everybody this lady's basically the second coming, which is the way it would seem to sound to me. And then I watched her really mess up some basic stuff in the ring. We all make mistakes. So this is not like I've never made a mistake in my life in the ring. But I think that she's 1/3 of the way in the direction she needs to be going. And my experience with the reason I point that out is that for people that get handed to that top spot, they usually don't seem to appreciate that top spot or understand what the spot is.
Mm-hmm. Let me think. I'll give you about 5 more. Austin Theory. Okay.
Don't know.
Walter / Gunther.
Now,
apparently.
Yeah. Same thing. Because I watch so scantily, don't know much about him. I see that they give a lot of accolades. Am I correct? Does he have an extensive amateur background?
Great question. I'll move on. Yeah. I've no idea. Yeah, right. Well, I was going to ask Matt Riddle, but I don't think you will have seen much of Matt Riddle then.
I've seen a few things from him. I understand the sort of like the Fast Time at Ridgemont High type character, and he certainly has that because he has the shoot fight background. Leads in there a bit. I can't understand what the attempt is to have him telling these stories about Goldberg. It just seems like left field. If it's something I'm reading online, it's the reason I don't like Goldberg or whatever. Well, again, who cares? It's irrelevant. You're never going to work with the guy.
Well, not now.
So, yeah. But I see something in that character. But what I'm hearing about WWE, and again, it's only what I hear. I don't watch to see it to verify it. I've heard that Hunter is going to make the kids in NXT now call it in the ring. And if that's true or not, I don't know. I would be curious as to how they would do it because they've never seen it. They've never done it. It's a completely different beast to what they're used to. So, but I'm willing to give Hunter the benefit of the doubt to see if he can bring the WWE back more in that direction. I'm questionable as to whether he will.
2 more then. Kevin Owens.
I've always loved Owen. I've been around the business for a long time. My thing about Kevin, and it's, each his own. Like we each create our own character, right? He's amazing in-ring ability, but he looks like he just left the Kmart on a shift, right? Look like the star that he is, right? Because he's damn good in the ring. For me, it's just I don't know if it's the company telling him that or if that's just what he's comfortable doing. But and I don't mean he needs to be out there in sequins and a burning cape or whatever, but look like a wrestler.
And the last one, Danhausen.
Dan,
Danhausen. So if you don't know who Danhausen is, then that's a skip straight away. Then.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, of all the people I mentioned there, who's the guy that you think is the top of that list that I've given you? I mean, you were very happy with Jon Moxley, Seth Rollins, Chris Jericho, a few others, Bron Breakker. Who's the class head of the class on that one?
Well, I just by pension of reality, I would say have to go with Jericho. But Jericho is obviously he's at the ladder stage. He's on the downside of his ladder. I think Moxley could become the guy. Like, he seems to be working in that vein. There's something fascinating about what he does with his character. And to me, he looks. I didn't like him at all in WWE. There was nothing about him that I was drawn to. So I was reticent to even watch his later stuff now that he's back in AEW. What I have seen, I still see a few vestiges of that, which makes sense. I mean, it's the same guy, but far more compelling on camera into what he's doing, and far better matches.